Clarities.
No, es...
¿Podemos tomar un par de preguntas al mismo tiempo? A ver.
Sí, yo lo que quería en realidad era una preocupación, si es que, como yo entiendo, hay más intereses, digamos así, egocéntricos de parte de Estados Unidos. ¿Dónde está el movimiento o la conciencia, o si hay algún partido político, o si hay algún movimiento a nivel de raíz del pueblo que para mejorar la situación? Porque
Please let me just introduce.
¿El pueblo nuestro o el pueblo de Estados Unidos?
Claro.
Well, let me just introduce the question. The question was if trade alliances or the trade dominations driven by the United States, what kind of political alternatives had been promoted at the Mexican level, and what resistance had been? Please.
I was thinking about the corporate taxation, because I mean, if you limit the state running of companies, you still have the right to take tax from foreign companies and national companies, and that's important to have a functioning taxation system.
Yes. Would you like to answer these?
Okay, between Pacific Alliance and Mercosur is a common external common duty. So it's custom union. It's different, and this is only free trade, and that makes difference. But Mercosur is opening regionalism also. Is not totally protected. Brazil goes where he wants. The government wants to go, and they are making very good. And Brazil, which is the hegemonist in this area, in these four countries integrated, but it's different. Even if we see what is happening, that opening regionalism is an obstacle to be more integrated, because if we see how the trade is going and how the trade is not very concentrated in the area. They have different partners. Brazil has different partners everywhere, and it's not concentrated. The difference is still there. Pacific Alliance is another concept. Pacific Alliance is trade exportations, just a platform to produce there and export, and together they are complementary. Mexico is complementary with Chile, for example, because Chile has a lot of copper, and with Peru for another raw materials, and they can produce, but the objective is to export. If we see, maybe the trade between them is going to increase, just because this kind of trade, which is traditional trade, raw materials and some manufacturers, so to produce, to go to other countries. And of course, the interest of the Mexican people, as we have winners and we have losers. The winners want to continue in this way, the winners. And the losers, we don't have so much leaders in that way. So people we don't have a lot of answers for that, a lot of requests from something is happening. No, this is going to continue, the integration is going to continue. And NAFTA only can change if one of the three countries, I'm talking about the government, decide to review NAFTA. And it's over what we decide into each country. It's over. We have to change the constitution in order to be into the NAFTA. And that is the reality. Tax systems. I think it would be cool. It would be okay. It's something that I am asking, and I am proponing for mining, for example, taxes. But it is against to Chapter 11. It's against. Why? Because some tax that is different in some sector to another, they already can demand to the state. Why? Because their profits are reducing. So that is the problem that we have. They really, when they write Chapter 11, was perfect for the way they wanted to go. And it's, the only way we have is negotiation with the entrepreneurs one by one. Negotiation. But you cannot ask for something that is a subject of or demand, for demand. So the only way we have in this moment is negotiate with the enterprises, and this is now into the Senate. They are negotiating a tax for mining, 7%, which is not too much, because in Canada they have to pay like 45 more than we have, just because they have taxes for this. They have another system of taxes. And of course, I'm talking about Canada because they are the main important in mining, Canadians. But they don't want 7%. Of course, they are fighting to have. They say that they only want to pay 2% for exploration. This is the tax that if you want to explore, to extract the. We have, of course, the gold and silver. That is the main products that we have, and they are exploring now.
This is obviously the question of taxing mining is a question in Sweden as well, as you know, where the taxes are even lower. I think they are below 1%, 0.2% in total.
There's no taxes.
No, basically not. Well, this has been a question all over, I think, every mining. Now, please.
I'm going to generalize, which one should not do in meetings like this. But reading a lot of newspapers, I have a background. I'm a Swedish person that has a company in Colombia since many decades back. And I read a lot of papers, and I say the consensus, as I find it, is that in Latin America, you have free traders that are the Pacific Alliance. These are go-getters, and they are out to work and to trade. And free trading can be good, it can be bad, but I mean, in the long run, they're free traders. Whereas the Mercosur is more, shall we say, protective in their way of moving ahead. And I think this is what investors are seeing in Latin America and looking at it very positively, mostly. But I mean, there are so many things that have happened in your country, which I visited a number of times, and I think it's interesting to see that there's a necessity in the United States and in Mexico, I mean, for agricultural workers. And you have a necessity in Mexico, and they're talking about, hey, we need people not to go to the States, but to stay. I don't know, what is there a truth in that, do you feel?
We'll take a number of other questions, suggestions, please.
Yes, I was thinking about what you talked about when you presented about that poverty has not diminished, and the benefits are not symmetrical for both countries. So I wonder how does it, and NAFTA is extending over the whole territory of Mexico, and the corporations, mostly, it's not the states, but the corporations that are getting the benefits that have not been distributed to the people. And how does this compromise the sovereignty of, I want to say sovereignty, I think it is in English, of Mexico? I mean, the capacity of the country to decide over itself what is good for its people and what is bad. Because if you have these chapters or these articles in the agreement that you cannot change, and you know that it's bad for country, what are the concrete courses to go about to change those articles, or to do something about do something about that which is bad?
Could I add a different kind of question, and it's a thing that I think we touched upon, and following in the line of the previous one, says that free trade can be bad or it can be good in that sense. To what extent would it, and of course the current reforms in Mexico touch upon the energy sector, but they also touch upon other sectors such as the education reform, and this is obviously a prominent theme in all of Latin America. To try to take advantage of free trade, you would need a better educated workforce. And do you think that to what extent is education reform a variable when it comes to the benefits brought by free trade here, and to what extent would you see this as a hindering factor? Yeah. So I think 3 questions. One about perhaps necessary generalizations between different countries, then sovereignty.
Yeah, we are not a common market. In common market, you have a liberalization for labor and capital. And here, of course, all workers from the agriculture cannot go to US and work over there. We cannot do that. They didn't include that. They only include free trade, not persons. In common market, this is European Union. We don't have this kind of integration. We have only trade and investment, and one of the factors has a regional movement. We are talking about capital, but we are not talking about labor. That is the reason that it could be okay. Yeah, in that context, of course, all of workers that they don't have a job in the agriculture in Mexico, they can go to United States and get. But we don't have that in NAFTA, and that was one of the reasons that they want only free trade. And of course now the agricultural sector and some manufacturers in the United States, they are angry because they are losing jobs. But it's not NAFTA. It's not from Mexico. Maybe it's a little bit impact, but the problem is how they did this in United States since the 80s. They gave more benefits to the knowledge entrepreneurs, and they marginalized the manufactured consumer goods. And of course, that is comparative advantage. They say why we are going to produce something that is very expensive to pay in US if we can bring it from Mexico. Or it's the same now. Why we are going to produce in United States when it's cheaper to bring it from China. And this is the way they think. This is orthodox theory, economical orthodox theory. And this is happening not only in Mexico, it's happening also in the United States. We are talking about winners and losers. They have losers over there also. But it's not only for Mexico. Because when China went into the World Trade Organization, China is keeping North American market now. So we have this. Okay. And if we can change, no, the government can do it. From Mexico, if the government decide we are going to review this, but Mexican government is not doing something like that because maybe they don't perceive that we perceive into the academical environment. They perceive that, I saw you, Santa Fe is perfect. So they don't perceive in the same way that we do. They have another perspective. That is the reason that globalization is working very well for these winners that we have, because governments also have the same perspective. They didn't push Mexico to do this. Mexico, the government of Mexico in that time, 1992, he was educated in Harvard. And they have this knowledge about all the benefits of the opening, and they are there. And I am not that part that is suffering, but we have a lot of people that is suffering. So we have this unequal world in Mexico. And around the world who is opening, but it's more difficult when you have these differences. Educated reforms. Oh yeah, we have the agreement from World Trade Organization in 1994, and everything is changing in education. Even the careers now is more productive for education to study information technological than study history, for example, or another kind of literature or things like that we used to study. But at the same time, they certificate the careers, they certificate the universities, and we are in that process. Everything has changed since World Trade Organization, but of course, sometimes NAFTA didn't took education, but they went further than multilateralism and negotiation into NAFTA. And of course, if we are according with the agreement in services, education is part of that kind of services that was multilateralist, not exactly NAFTA. In services we have financial services also, but that is part of the liberalization, the regulation from the financial markets. But education is in multilateralism. Some topics are according with multilateralism, and NAFTA is according with multilateralism. It's not separated, but they could further, like they couldn't do it just in World Trade Organization. That was one of the reasons that they are okay with NAFTA. Trade and investment. We don't have a multilateral investment agreement.
Thank you. Now I think we can have a final round of questions, comments, if there are any other. Please, over there. And think about the question and pose it now or else during the reception afterwards. Please.
Gracias. Soy Svenulo, muchas gracias por la clase. Creo que mi castellano es un poco mejor que mi inglés. Entonces pienso un poco más allá de NAFTA. ¿Cómo es el comercio entre Suecia y México en estos días? ¿Hay solamente los suecos que viajan para conocer y saber un poco más de México, o hay un comercio mutuo entre los dos países? Gracias.
It was a question about Swedish-Mexican relations and to what extent trade relations are developing and to what extent relations are more based on, if I understood you, tourism and other aspects. If you can answer this, otherwise I think we might have take this. Any other question for?
We have relations, but they are, comparative with that we have, for example, with Canada. In the data that I have in trade, they are not very significant. Even though we have, if we see percentage only, that is not significant, very significant. But and we have investment from this country, but it's like 2% for investment. And Netherlands is now since 10 years ago, Netherlands is into this corridor into Lucca. Netherlands is very going. Yeah, I mean.
And Sweden?
Yes.
Would you know anything about it? And Sweden?
No, Sweden is like 2% of the investment.
Mm.
Netherlands is 17%.
Yes, I believe I may have some numbers in my head. Well, one of the most important products that the trade balance between Mexico and Sweden is negative. We do more imports to Mexico than exports to Sweden. We want to obviously change that. Sweden, I believe, is the 13th or 14th most relevant countries in terms of foreign direct investment to Mexico. One of the most important companies we have investing in Mexico is Ericsson, of course. And we had a really good article this morning. But on the other hand, obviously it's around it's lower than 1%, I believe, the investment representing the whole big investment. So that's more or less what's happening.
Yeah, it's not very significant.
The manufacture is the thing that we export the most, and Sweden imports the most. Is advanced manufacturing components. This is radio components. This is electronics, and this is car part manufacturers.
Any final question? Anything you would like to add, Maria Antonia?
No, thank you very much for being in this presentation, and I apologize for my Spanish.
Thank you very much.